Enjoy Lakewood's local history and celebrate Colorado's sesquicentennial 150-year anniversary with the Lakewood Historic Preservation Commission's virtual tour at Lakewoodco.gov/PreservationMonth. May is the perfect time because it's Historic Preservation Month.
Joseph Hodgson, age 24, and his younger brother William, age 21, were among the thousands of individuals who arrived in what is now Colorado in 1859. The two traveled by oxen team from their New York home to Denver, arriving in June. They settled on 160 acres of land north of Bear Creek, near the current crossroads of Yale Avenue and Estes Street. Originally, Philomeno Mondragon was the deed holder of the acreage. He received it as a U.S. military land grant for his role in the Navajo Wars. Mondragon enlisted in 1848 at Los Ranchos de Albuquerque, serving under Captain Aragon. Unable to write, Mondragon made his mark on the land claim and asked that the grant be immediately assigned to a Washington, D.C. attorney for resale. Joseph purchased the bounty paper from the attorney and headed west to his Bear Creek land. William homesteaded the land west of and adjacent to Joseph's. Among the improvements the brothers made to the land was the construction of a 1.5-story house on Joseph's land between 1860 and 1863. William kept careful expense records showing that the costs for the house, shingles, nails, windows, doors and door frames, glass, paint, putty, masonry work, and wages for a helper totaled $1,295. The stone cost an additional $231.86, and the chimney an additional $300. The result of this construction project was what Joseph described in a statement to the land office as, quote, a stone house, 28 by 28 feet, 1 story high, shingle roof, plank floor, 10 doors and 13 windows, and is a comfortable house to live in. In constructing the salt box-style house, the builders gathered roughly 4-inch diameter cobblestones from Bear Creek and placed them in precise rows, which is an unusual method of constructing stone houses. Typically, cobblestone houses are in a rubble arrangement, which is not in exact rows, and the stones are not necessarily the same size. Although Joseph noted that the house was 1 story, the back half of the house has a low 2-room second story. The salt box style was common in New England from about 1650 to 1800. With the slope of the 2 stories to the 1-story section, it resembled a lidded wood box used to store salt. Dakota stone, a form of sandstone taken from the hogback a few miles west of the house, makes up the oversized and attractive window lintels and the coulings. The brothers operated a farm and ranch and boarded livestock, including oxen, cattle, mules, and horses, at times charged $42 a month for individual animals. They paid a ranch hand $1 per day and sold baled hay and their farm-grown vegetables in Denver. They continued land acquisitions in the Bear Creek area, and according to their 1874 tax records, owned 640 acres, 500 animals, 2 carriages, and 14 horses. They sold their land by the mid-1880s to pursue other ventures. Later owners continued farming the land and living in the house, with the Clark family operating a hog farm on the land in the 1890s. Bear Creek flooded the land and came up to the house several times over the century since the brothers first arrived. The house became vacant and in disrepair. By 1973, when the city of Lakewood purchased the land and house, silt, remaining from floods over the years, had raised the ground level surrounding the house by 3 feet, to the point that the basement windows were covered. The city hired Morris and Van Wormer architectural firm to restore the house in 1975. This is the same year the house was listed in the National Register of Historic Places. Once restored, the city used the house as an event center, which it continues to do today. The stone house is at 2900 South Estes Street.
The Welch Ditch saw its first water flow into Golden on July 2, 1871. Considered an engineering marvel at the time, the wood flume's creosote-soaked construction traversed the high, rugged terrain of Clear Creek Canyon. Charles Clark Welch was the owner of the Vasquez Flume and Ditch Company, who won the bid to dig the ditch, carrying water from Lakewood into Golden. The ditch reached the original site of the Colorado School of Mines near Ford Street, but by 1873 it wrapped around South Table Mountain, reaching into Lakewood. The effects of the Welch Ditch construction were evident immediately, as water carried to Golden made headlines in the Colorado Transcript, and water flowed to the newly created Colorado School of Mines campus. Water from the ditch irrigated the city of Golden, as Charles Clark Welch's leadership on the project focused on an open channel with a natural bottom and concrete walls. The ditch impacted municipalities and homesteads along its path. Agricultural settlements that dotted the canyon flourished from the flow of the water. Aspen groves, apple orchards, and seasonal crops grew along an approximately 4,000-acre stretch from Golden into Lakewood. The Welch Ditch was not immune to the changing tide of Colorado's climate, however. Floods from 1886 to 1907 damaged the ditch, and portions of it had to be replaced, which invariably led to modifications and tended to improve the meandering ditch structure. A new dam, headgate, and path modifications, including the use of a tunnel bored through the hogback, improved the ditch at the turn of the 20th century. In the 1920s, Williams Cement Bill Williams signed a contract to replace the wood flume with concrete. Williams believed the replacement of the wood flume with concrete would help improve the infrastructure of Golden. By the 1930s, the remaining planks along the Welch Ditch were replaced with pressurized creosote Douglas fir from the West Coast Wood Preserving Company. A plaque mounted by the west end of the ditch still reminds us of the ditch's significance. By 2002, the Welch Ditch was no longer used and fell into disrepair. In 2020, Jefferson County Open Space started preparation to convert portions of the ditch into a trail in Clear Creek Canyon Park. In 2021, the Welch Ditch Trail opened to the public. Today, sightseers, hikers, and preservationists can walk along the Peak to Plains Trail, now incorporating the Welch Ditch.
The Country School, also known as the 1867 Ralston Crossing Church and Schoolhouse. In the years just after the Civil War, when Colorado was still a territory and the settlements along Ralston Creek were little more than clusters of homesteads, a small group of Methodist Episcopal families gathered to build something their young community desperately needed: a place to meet, to worship, and to anchor their shared life on the frontier. Around 1867, on a patch of land near what is now West 68th Avenue and Indiana Street, they raised a modest wooden church, simple in form but ambitious in purpose. The Ralston Crossing Church was typical of its era, a single rectangular room framed in local timber, with plank floors and a handful of evenly spaced windows that admitted the Colorado sun. Inside, the furnishings were sparse. A potbelly stove provided heat in the winter. Nothing about the building was ornate, yet everything about it was intentional. For several years, the church served as the spiritual and social center of the Ralston Creek settlement. Families gathered for Sunday worship, but also for meetings, celebrations, and the informal schooling that often took place in such buildings. By 1870, the settlement had grown enough that local children needed more consistent instruction. Records show that 32 students were already attending classes in the church by December of that year. The dual use of the building was not unusual. Across the West, churches frequently doubled as classrooms until dedicated facilities could be built. On September 30th, 1871, the congregation formally transferred the building to the Ralston School District No. 12, marking the end of its life as a church and the beginning of its long service as a schoolhouse. By 1919, the district recognized that a single room could no longer meet the needs of a growing population. A bond issue funded the construction of a second classroom, transforming the old church into a classic two-room rural schoolhouse. For the next several decades, the schoolhouse remained a vital institution. It was not merely a place of learning, but a gathering point for the community. PTA meetings, social events, and agricultural lectures and local votes all took place within its walls. By the mid-20th century, larger, more centralized schools replaced the small rural schools, and in 1956, the old building was moved to the grounds of Vivian Elementary School in Lakewood. Its relocation was an act of preservation at a time when many pioneer-era structures were being lost. Facing demolition in 1982, the R1 School District instead donated the building to Heritage Lakewood Belmar Park through the Lakewood Historical Society. It was moved there in September 1983 and later restored. That is where you can find the country school today. We invite you to come and visit this place of local history.
The circa 1874 home, known as the Cason and Mary Howell House, is on the Colorado State Register of Historic Properties. This unassuming house, near the intersection of Colfax and Kipling, was once the hub of a vast 160-acre farm. Cason Howell, an experienced farmer from Missouri, purchased 160 acres of land located midway between the cities of Golden and Denver from Daniel J. Baldridge, a land broker, on January 9, 1867. Cason and Mary Howell and their 3 children, along with Mary's father and mother, Alan and Margaret Crook, arrived in Jefferson County prior to the 1870 census. The house the Howells constructed in about 1874 is the last remaining of the many homes built in the area by successful farming families. It is a reminder of those days when the entire land between Denver and the foothills was covered with many crops, orchards, and dairies. According to Jefferson County agricultural tax records, the farm grew in value from 1871 until 1894 when it reached its peak. In 1885, the tax records began recording personal property as well as land and improvements. The 1887 record for the Howell farm shows 160 acres under irrigation, 30 acres in oats, 25 in timothy, 6 in alfalfa, 40 in native grass, 5 in orchards, and 1.5 in small fruit. They put up 500 quarts of currants, 500 quarts of gooseberries, 25 quarts of raspberries, and 1,500 quarts of strawberries. They had 8 horses, 14 head of cattle, 1 beehive, 1 clock, 1 musical instrument, and 3 carriages. In the early years, farmers were able to sell their produce to miners, people in Golden, and later to people in Denver. Many farms in Jefferson County, including the Howell farm, had dairies and delivered milk to Denver daily. The primary crop in the last years of the farm was fruit. In 1905, the Denver Sunday Post reported that the Cason Howell Ranch is one of the oldest and most extensive apple producers in the area. In all, Mr. Howell has about 15 acres in apples. Several years ago, 585 barrels, or 755 boxes, were gathered from the 2 acres. 12 Big Pen Davies trees in particular gave a prodigious yield, furnishing a total of 120 barrels. As apples that year brought $2 a barrel, Mr. Howell netted a neat sum of $240 for the crop of 12 trees for one season. The yield this year is the heaviest known, and 9,000 boxes of extra fine fruit will be shipped off this place, besides a large quantity of the cheaper grades of apples. A very interesting feature of Cason Howell's orchards is the natural brace that he has invented for the fruit trees. This was a great advantage to the farmers who adopted it. The original device, adopted in 1891, has not only saved many trees which were among the greatest bearers in the Howell orchards, but has also been adopted by other farmers at Delta, Grand Junction, and elsewhere. The estimated total yield for 1905 was about 9,000 boxes from 1,400 trees. The true hub of this large, successful, and productive and innovative farm was the home of Cason and Mary Howell. The 2-story Cason Howell House is an example of Italianate style popular in Colorado from the 1870s to about 1900. The original part of the house has a truncated hip roof. The 2-story addition on the south side has a flat roof, and the west side addition has a hip roof. The additions have brick walls. The outside walls are covered with a heavy coat of cement stucco, but exposed areas reveal they were originally made of soft-fired red brick, common in the later half of the 1800s. The windows have arched wood lintels and decorative shutters. A partially enclosed front porch has door and window openings directly opposite the door and the window in the house. The front door opens into a center room, and to the rear of the room is the original parlor. Also, a dining room with a kitchen behind. To the left of the center room is the living room addition with its flat roof. The west addition contains a hall, bathroom, bedroom, and access to the outside. The laundry room on the back was originally a single-car garage. 2 bedrooms are on the second, and the south side has a large bedroom with French doors opening out onto the flat roof of the south addition. A flat-roof single-car garage was probably added on when the first family car was purchased. Today, you can drive by the Howell House at 1575 Kipling Street in northern Lakewood.